Hello, everybody, and welcome to the channel once more. We're joined by James M Hewitt.
You're the only channel that ever says the M, and I love you for it.
Games designer extraordinaire, and he is here with us today to talk about Fallout Factions Nuka-World. So It's great to have you back with us once more.
It feels like coming home, you know?
Well, we're like a warm embrace, a lovely bath there.
Exactly. I need one of those.
We are dressed like rose petals, you know. So.
I'll just lay back and you can do the rest.
There we go. So before we kick into anything specifically, do you want to give us a brief about how Fallout Factions Nuka-World came about and the direction you're taking with it, because it's the second Fallout game Modiphius has on its books.
It is, yeah. So I started working on it about 3 years ago, I think. So John Webb, who at the time was heading up like kind of the Fallout range at Modiphius, he's kind of moved on to other things at the moment. But me and him, we go way back. We used to work in Games Workshop Maidstone together like 20 years ago or something. We've always kind of stayed in touch, and they were looking for someone to do some work on a new game. You use the same Fallout miniatures but targeted a different audience. Mm-hmm. And so John came to me. We had a lot of chats about what it could be, and we knew from the start it was going to be based around Nuka-World, which is it's a piece of DLC expansion for Fallout 4, where you go to like an abandoned theme park based on Nuka-Cola, which is one of the big brands in the game. Mm-hmm. And it's very tongue-in-cheek, very Fallout. And the whole point of the video game is you got 3 crews of raiders, like your wasteland nomad, fighty people, all kind of living there in kind of in harmony, but there's this kind of jostling between them. And we thought that's a really cool thing for a game, right? So yeah, effectively we started working on a system, and I've worked in the past on skirmish games like Necromunda is the big one, and other things as well, some of which haven't come out yet. And so I got the chance to kind of take a lot of that and put it into this setting and make a game that's really accessible, easy for new players to get into who might be fans of the video game but not massive miniatures gamers, but also something that's really suitable for people that have been playing Wasteland Warfare and want it to be kind of more of a head-to-head competitive experience. And I hope we've kind of nailed that. Because
with Wasteland Warfare, it's a very narrative-driven game.
Yeah.
So this is more grunty PvP gang fights.
Yeah.
Then
You've still got like a bit of narrative in there, but it's to use Games Workshop terms, as it's kind of the common parlance, like it's Necromunda narrative, not Inquisitor narrative, if that kind of makes sense. So yeah. There's bits of narrative that tie the games together. You've got an ongoing storyline for your crew, but you're not having to go into really deep granular detail. So for example, when you start playing Wasteland Warfare, you have to like individually equip each of your models. You think, right, so this one's going to be this unit card, these equipment and perk cards. You end up with this whole tableau of things in front of you, and it's the sort of thing where we wanted to skip a lot of that and just go, right, here are some basic loadouts you can pick from different things. The fun comes from building your crew, not building each model. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, I guarantee there will be people who play both games and they'll use the same miniatures for each, because one of them suits, I'm going to go and have a pickup game down at the club, or one of them is I'm going to hang out with my mates or play solo and have a very granular narrative experience.
Which is very nice indeed. Does that mean that you've kept close to the Fallout Wasteland Warfare rules then, or is there much sort of cross-pollination between the two rule sets that will make it familiar for one coming from going to the other?
In a word, no. But in a good way. So when we started, I'd not played Wasteland Warfare, and I very deliberately decided not to look into it because I kind of wanted to not be coloured by that. Because I thought, well, if we're aiming for a potentially different target market, people who maybe have played that and bounced off it, or have looked at it and gone, oh, that's a lot of rules for me. I wanted to kind of not be coloured by it, and so I only actually started playing Wasteland Warfare within the last 6 months or so. And it was really interesting looking at it and going, oh, actually, those things are kind of similar. It's interesting how we kind of diverged on that point. But no, the rules are completely built from scratch. There's a couple of familiar things, like we still use the special profile. Anyone who's played the Fallout video games will know strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, and luck. There we go. I did it all in one go. I get to the end, I always want to go initiative, attack, leadership, because that's what IAL is at the end of a 40k profile in the old days. But yeah, so you've still got that. You've still got some of the, I think a little bit of terminology carries across, but it's a very different game. I mean, Wasteland Warfare, like I say, it's very granular, lots of custom dice, lots of very specific tokens, and we wanted to kind of pull as much of that out as possible. So it's regular D10s. You've got some different colored regular D10s and some tokens, but we wanted to kind of make it so that a player doesn't need the official token set and dice. You could just, if you get hold of, the rules, so that you get the PDF when it comes out, you could just use tokens, chips, whatever else. Someone will come out with a funky MDF or a credit set, I'm sure. Yeah. And then you get to kind of just, play the game. And it's you're writing on a paper sheet. It's very kind of old school in some ways. I'm down with that.
I'm 100% on board with that. I'm the very epitome of old school when it comes to most of these things. Yeah. So talking about the mechanics then, it's D10 based and it's dice pool based as well, but it leans into the luck aspect, at least in a couple of ways that I've seen. Do you want to talk us through
absolutely.
Luck potential?
So when we're thinking like which things to focus on, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in Fallout that because we're seeing this from the bad guys' point of view, right? Or not so much the bad guys necessarily. I mean, it's raiders for now, but who knows down the line. The point is, though, that you're looking at the kind of the nobodies of the wasteland, right? And the whole point of the game is you're bringing them up to be a cool thing. So you can't do like Pip-Boy and VATS and a lot of the stuff that you would lean on if you were just trying to make a board game or tabletop game of the video game. So we thought, okay, what is it? Special is a really big thing. In the games, it's always kind of been there, and luck is this very ephemeral, weird stat. In the video games, luck is generally a thing which, the game will look at your luck stat in 100 different ways. Whenever it's generating loot, when it's generating, which enemies spawn, all these sorts of different things, whether a shot hits you, and one time in 100 it will have some effect. That's kind of. We don't want to do that in a tabletop game because it's a lot of working out. So we thought, well, let's actually, we're already rolling a load of dice, so luck's already part of it. Let's just bring that to the fore. So what happens is whenever you make a dice test, generally for a combat thing, you pick a number of dice based on the weapon you're firing, for example, and that will also tell you which of your stats you're going to use. So, for example, a handmade rifle, one of the kind of real kind of standard guns in the game, is 4p. So it's 4 dice using your perception. So you grab your 4 d10s, and what you're doing, the most basic version of this is you roll the dice, and each one that scores equal to or less than your perception is a hit. Nice and straightforward, very straightforward dice pool system. The way luck comes in is every model, of course, has got a luck stat, generally between 1 and 3. 3 for your leaders, 2 for your grunts, 1 for your absolute nobodies. And that switches one of those dice in the pool, or however many dice as you have your luck stat, for luck dice. So if you've got luck 3, 3 of those dice become luck dice. You roll those, and the luck dice explode. So if they hit, you roll another standard dice into it. So you get this kind of little kind of nice little curve of probabilities that means that occasionally something really cool can happen. It's not like the endless exploding. Like, I mean, a lot of games like Dystopian Wars, for example, where it's like, you keep on rolling, or Dreadball, a classic example. Hang on, Dreadball. Where but this kind of caps it slightly. Yeah. But also what it does is every gun, or most guns, have a critical effect. So as long as one of your luck dice hits, as well as exploding, you also get a cool effect. If anyone played Horus Heresy Betrayal at Calth, which is it was the first board game I ever did for Games Workshop. I kind of borrowed from that, where guns just had like a number of dice and a critical effect, and it lets you play around with the idea of like narratively these guns are quite different without having to have a huge pile of stats. So, for example, the handmade rifle here, if you're critical with it, you suppress the enemy and you knock some action points off them. Again, also borrowed from Betrayal at Calth. You have other ones which will drop the enemy's armor value, or ones which will set them on fire, or whatever it might be. And so it lets you kind of go, well, these guns all have 3 dice and use perception, but that one's really suppressive. That one's just really brutal, and that one literally makes you melt into pieces because it's made of cool energy weapon stuff.
It's always good.
Yeah.
did I also see if so it looks like there's no pre-measuring in the game, but if you're out of the effective range of the weapon, then you lose your luck dice then. So you're never going, well, this rifle is only going to shoot 12 inches and then stop dead.
Yeah.
The rifle could potentially fire 6 foot, but you're just not lucky anymore.
Yeah. So I mean, you can measure as much as you like. The game doesn't restrict measuring at all. But also, every game only plays on a 2x3 board, so 24 by 36 inches, which means that like when we were playing it early on, we were like your first thought when you're designing something like that is, oh, well, the guns all need a range. Yeah. And then you think, well, actually, it kind of makes. I mean, even a pistol. In the video game, you could shoot someone with a pistol from that far away. Yeah. So what we did was we put in an effective range for weapons, which is if you shoot beyond that, you lose those luck dice. So the concept of unlucky shots, which is like shooting into combat, shooting outside your range. I think something else as well, which basically means you don't get that luck dice, you don't get your cool effects, you don't get the extra explosions, but you're not useless, Yeah.
Which I'm sure is handy for some of the factions and groups of raiders more than others.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, if you have a lot of close combat, but one guy has a pistol, just keep firing that pistol anyway.
Yeah. One of my favorite combos in the three starting factions. Oh, the three factions that not starting factions. The three factions that exist. There are no more planned. There is the pack who have they're kind of your real kind of animalistic, real heavy hitting combat-y types, but they've got the automatic handmade rifle. So this is a thing in Fallout. Modding weapons is huge. Like you get the chance, especially in the more recent games, you get to really tinker with your weapons and pull them to pieces and do all different things. We wanted to kind of find a middle ground where it's not too granular, but you still get a chance to do it. So what we did with the handmade rifle, for example, we've made, I think, 5 different variants of it, which are like I sat in Fallout 4 at a weapon workshop thinking, oh, what could these be, for some of the different guns. And so we've said these are like the 5 different. There's a little short range carbine, a marksman type, all this blah blah blah, and then you can mod them slightly. But like the pack have got the automatic handmade rifle, which is slightly shorter range, massive box mag, just a and it just the whole point is you keep the enemy's heads down. You're not going to hit much, but you'll keep their heads down while your other guys charge them with sledgehammers and win the day.
Well, I like the idea of winning the day. It happens to me. It happens to me less and less these days.
Gaming is about escapist fantasy. That's all I can say.
Yeah. On the subject of sort of combos and running in, there's some really interesting additions that you've got in the game. First off, there's everybody can take 2 actions that they get fatigued and then exhausted, or weary and then exhausted, but they don't have to be taken at the same time. And if you split them up, it allows you to do things like you're allowed to do a double move in the same.
You can do a lot of things,
round,
absolutely,
but not in the same turn. So you can't go 8 and 8, but you could sprint 12 if you need to go from cover to cover. But if you're prepared to sit there on that first move and not get shot in the face, then you've potentially got another 8 coming to you later on.
Yeah,
that must have been a interesting one for testing and balancing, because
100%.
A lot of games will go either you can or you can't. And you take your 2 actions together, and
we wanted to make it. We want to make it as like permissive as possible. Like I like games that when you're a player, there's nothing worse than feeling I really want to do this thing. Oh, I can't do it. What I like to be able to say is, you can do it, but it'll cost you. This is how I run a lot of role playing games. It's the way I GM games and things. Yeah, you can do it, but there's a cost. And so in this, the idea that hey, you want to move your guy across the entire board in a turn, you probably can, but it's going to come at a significant cost to you. And there's a couple of things like as I said during testing where we had to really sort of shuffle it around a lot to get it to where it is. But we ended up with a thing where you get effectively 2 actions. We don't call it 2 actions. We say you can be, your first action makes you weary, the second one makes you exhausted. That's called fatigue. And when you're exhausted, you can take no more actions. There are rules and effects and things that can play around with that, but generally, 2 actions per round. And so I can say I'm going to activate this scaver over here who's going to spend 1 action to move, and then second action to shoot. I'll do it all in one go. Or I'll move this one, wait to see what you do, then I'll decide, are you going to bring your guy out of cover so I can now have a better shot? Or I'm going to move over here, and in doing so, I'm going to issue movement orders to these other models that are within that first model's control zone, which is based on their charisma, and bring them along as well. So I'm spending a lot of actions at once, but claiming like area control. Or I might then open fire, and now they're going to give supporting fire. So they're all spending their actions at once. I'm getting a really cool big bonus rather than, lots of little actions. And actually the biggest thing that did, like bringing in the idea of supporting actions, was because it's I activate, you activate, back and forth kind of thing. we found, and this is like classic Blood Bowl, right?
Mhm.
You would do all the cool stuff that was really important first, and the last half of the turn, the back end of the turn was just, oh, this guy goes here, this guy goes here, nothing really matters, and it just made the game kind of drag. And so when we put this thing in where you can run your cool leader with an awesome weapon forward, and then these 3 grunts around him can open fire as well. Well, that's taking their actions away, so they're not having to do little rubbish actions at the end, and their actions now matter when it matters. So that felt like a real light bulb moment, and that's when the game really kicked into gear, I think.
And also, it brings an interesting dynamic to the game as well, especially when you're talking about the sort of the grip actions, because what you would often find in games like Necromunda or Frostgrave or whatever, you get bonuses if you're supported in a combat, but you can't move multiples in easily. Normally what will happen is you'll sacrifice somebody terrible, he'll charge in, and then the next person will come in and they'll get the supporting attacks. And maybe you'll risk losing 1 or 2 models and you're having to make that start. But because you can grip move, essentially grip activate them, all of a sudden then you have groups of raiders working like groups of raiders, supporting each other, moving and putting pressure on points as well.
It puts like a lot of interesting decisions in the player's lap, but also doesn't seem to overwhelm. Like one of the things I'm really happy with is when, like I've demoed this game now over the last 6 months, especially to a lot of people, like at Modiphius, who maybe aren't big tabletop gamers, people in the marketing team, people who are like, higher up in the company who just want to know what it's about, and people who haven't played like any miniatures games before. They're like around in and they're like, oh, I get it. And then they start, they stop trying to learn the rules and start thinking strategically, and the game lets them do that. And I think I'm so happy with that. I mean, this is the game. I worked in the game for like 2 years, and then I came into Modiphius with like the dev team there, and it's a bunch of people who are, all of them are pretty new at like game design stuff. They all just leapt into this, and this game is only as good as it is because these people worked so freaking hard to get it to where it is. And there are some amazing, like, oh, if you do that thing, that breaks the game completely, and it just it blindsided me because I wouldn't have thought of that. As with anything, the more people you have working on a thing, the better.
Sure.
Right. So yeah, it's been a really fun dev experience.
We won't delve too much deeper into the mechanic side. There was one little finishing piece that I like, which is the ending the round, and that is you can pass, and in passing, you give up the rest of your activations. Yeah. But you gain the initiative token for the next turn, and it's not often that a game rewards you doing nothing. But it allows you to get into a position where you are either on an objective or pressuring an objective or whatever it happens to be. And then you go, you know what? There's nothing else I can do here that won't put me at either a disadvantage or give your opponent more opportunities to hit you around the head with a baseball bat or shoot you in the face. So I'm just going to stop here. Yeah. I'll take that initiative token for next turn, and good luck, Skipper. The ball's in your court. And then your opponent's going, well, do I use the rest of my activations or...
Yeah, absolutely. And again, and what that does as well is it does that whole thing where you get trying to get the drop on your opponent, and it's a lovely decision point. I've had games where you sit there going, do I want to do that one last action where I might get a lucky shot, or is it more worth going, no, I'm definitely getting initiative next turn? But also, again, it cuts down the end of the round because there's actions you're just not using, and you're happily sacrificing those actions to move the game along. And the game rattles along at a really good pace as a result.
That is very cool indeed. Factions then. It's in the name of the game. And there are 3 coming in there. Do you want to tell us a bit about them? Is there much of a difference between them? And if so, how have you sort of generated that? Or is it more carte blanche for the player?
The 3 of them, they are 3 raider factions. In the video game, it doesn't make a huge amount of difference. Yeah, they have slightly different weapons, slightly different armor. And as a result, they are fairly similar in the way they operate, but they are different enough with the war gear, the range of stats, and the perks you can give them and things that you get some interesting decisions. So if you want to go like, I want to be kind of a bit more stand-backy, gun-liney, I've got a big plan and you don't know about it, ha ha ha. You got the operators, and they've got some really, they've got a missile launcher, they've got lots of long-range weaponry. They've got a little bit of up-close stuff, but they're really about the kind of, we're going to grab this area and good luck to you.
Come at us, yeah.
You've got the pack who I mentioned earlier, who are like just the screaming nutters. They want to run in and just ruin your day, and they've got like a really nice range of close range things. They've got a flamer, which is just a horrific, brutal weapon, especially on a table this small, because you can get into close range pretty easily. So a flamer is a really scary thing, very vital target to take down. And the disciples kind of tread a middle ground. They are the kind of sneaky. Their general thing is the leader types tend to have the more long range stuff, whereas your grunts are much more get up close. So you're kind of keeping people's heads down or picking out prime targets while the rest of your gang moves forward and does things. So it's 3 different play styles. And I mean, if we were doing like due diligence, we would then have also worked on a load of other ideas for factions that maybe expand that in different directions. But who could say?
So on the factions then, obviously because it's Nuka-World, it's those factions that are involved. And I get where you're coming from, because I've played through Nuka-World, and it's like the factions kind of like beyond surface level are very similar. Because all the equipment is more or less can be gathered by anybody. But I like translating what you see from their political standpoint or their power struggle standpoint, and translating that into how they would play out is interesting. Where do I want to start with these questions? Because there's going to be questions where I'm going to feel Todd Hard, like leaning over my head and saying this just works, leave it alone.
Yeah.
I know we have 3. So is there thoughts of potentially in the future, depending on success? I assume a lot of it depends on how well the game is received.
Yep.
Where it can go now. It feels like mechanically and stuff that it is very open to basically expanding anywhere it wanted to.
Yeah.
So my question is, why Nuka-World first? It's a bit of an obvious question, really. Where
part of it was
first?
Part of it was like timing, because I think the way it was landing, they were working on the Nuka-World Raider plastics. They knew that the game, like I think Wave 9, I think it was of Wasteland Warfare, was the Nuka-World Wave, which has just come out recently. It all kind of lined up quite nicely. And here's 3 gangs that you could have this kind of game with. But also, what's nice as well is the campaign in the box is all about controlling Nuka-World. So it's a nice contained area. Here is the park. Here are 5 locations in the park that are named. And, you're going to go, and as you play games, you gain control in different areas, and each one's got some little extra rules and things. So it was here is a nice area with 5 very distinct locations and a bunch of gangs. It's kind of it just works right for this kind of game.
Yeah, absolutely. Are we going to see anyone fighting over the Exo-1 power armor in Galaxy World, was it?
Yeah, I think it's Galactic Zone. Yeah,
Galactic Zone.
So power armor is an interesting one. I mean, because the thing is, you can't not have power armor in Fallout. It's so iconic, and we really, from the start, we were like, how will power armor work? How will super mutants work? Because this is a game with big scary things. How do you make those things work? And we wanted to make it so that if a crew has access to power armor, that's a really cool thing, but without overbalancing it completely. And so I can't say too much, but let's just say that power armor is a cool thing, and I think it'd be silly to not include it in Fallout in some way.
Because we have seen a lot of it in Wasteland Warfare.
Oh yeah,
because of those factions are like the bigger overarching factions in Fallout 4. And I know we've seen a few. I think the Enclave have a pack as well in Wasteland Warfare.
Yeah,
is there going to be much cross compatibility between the factions in Wasteland Warfare and what we currently have with Nuka-World?
So what I think, the way I've looked at it is, everything in Nuka-World that we release everything we release for factions will absolutely 100% be usable in Wasteland Warfare. It will have its own rules for Wasteland Warfare. The assembly guides for the kits, which are actually on the website now, have the rules for both factions and Wasteland Warfare in them. So I don't think anyone's noticed yet. They've put the assembly guides up. No one's noticed the full rules for the crews, including points values and everything, are in there. People could be reverse engineering the games and playing it right now with the quick start and that. But so everything will kind of work that way. Some stuff that works will go the other way. Some stuff from Wasteland Warfare will work in factions. Because of the nature of the game, it's very much the core experience is story driven. It's about your crew trying to make it big. That kind of cuts out a lot of things. Like I can't see us doing a Nuka-Lurk faction, that would I want to be the biggest, crabbiest Nuka-Lurk of all. Ghouls, feral ghouls certainly, maybe, but we've got a lot of plans for different ways the game can be played and different opportunities that can provide for people to use their miniatures.
And I suppose you don't want to muddy the water of Nuka-World by introducing a lot of stuff that isn't really there or doesn't make a 100%. Lot of sense.
Yeah,
Like,
that's it.
I could imagine, and this is just me pure speculation, like you could have an almost monster of the week kind of feel. You could have a big monster brought in and go, right, now all three factions either have to work together or try and kill it first to get a bit of renown and prestige or something like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you could do. I mean, what I will say as well is if you look at the logo, it's Fallout Factions, Nuka-World.
Yeah.
And I'll say nothing else.
Yeah. Well, I can't pry anymore because there's factions that I want. That I would
list your three favorites, and I will not move my face at all.
Gunners, the ones from the Forge in Fallout 4. I think they're in Wasteland Warfare.
I know who you mean.
Yeah,
are they just called the Forged? I think
they're just called the Forged. Yeah, and I kind of want. This is way out. This is
deep cut. Go on.
I want the escaped synths from Far Harbor as a faction.
Okay,
because they'd be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. As you see, no reaction whatsoever on any of those.
Very good of you.
Who can possibly say? I just want to do the. That's what I want to do. Yeah. Oh no! Wait, bleep that. Don't put that in. Or do. I don't know. We'll talk afterwards.
Yeah. So if you've heard that, congratulations.
Yeah,
and if you
absolutely.
haven't, unlucky. Before we let you go, I have a quick question about campaign system. Because obviously you're building up the factions, whoever they happen to be, and the idea is to progress and maybe one day own your own little slice of post-apocalyptic heaven. How much sort of bookkeeping is there? Because sometimes less is more, and then sometimes with things like this, you're going, well, especially where you're setting it in a particular place like Nuka-World Fun Fair, will people be able to go, well, this area is mine, the Ferris wheel is mine, the bits and pieces, do we have a map-based system, or is it all just pen and paper, or is the choice the players?
So, like, speaking as someone who's run like a lot of campaigns for games like this, we've kind of boiled it down to the vibes of a map-based campaign with a group of friends, while removing the need for a map or a group of friends.
Excellent.
So what you kind of have is you track. So you've got a double-sided crew sheet. On the front, you use all the things that are during the game. This is my during the game sheet. Flip it over. You've got the story phase sheet where you track things like your quest. Which is you have a quest line for your crew, you pick it when you make them, and it gives you basically a set of achievements, right? So it'll be like, I want to, my crew wants to take out 3 guys in melee combat. They want to gain a bunch of control in this particular location, and they want to upgrade 5 guns. Or whatever, that's off the top of my head. And you tick those off as you go, and it gives you kind of a meta objective, right, between games. When you complete all your goals, that stage of the quest is over. You go to the next stage, and you get your crew levels up, so you can now have slightly more models in there and things. You can control more areas, and when you level up, 1 to 2, there are 3 tiers. When you finish tier 3, your crew retires. And you get the chance to kind of go pick one of your champions and make a new crew around them, or start something completely new. Because I wanted to have an endpoint, like the number of campaigns that just kind of just grind slowly to a halt. This actually gives you a very clear endpoint. So that's that. The way that you track like the location bonuses, you just have the 5 locations in Nuka-World on the back of your sheet, and you track numerically how much control you have in that area, and you gain or lose control. So it feels like that kind of map-based campaign thing. When you and I sit down to play a game, we just compare how much control we've each got in that area, and that gives us a bonus if we're playing in the area we're playing in. And so it kind of has this thing where you don't have to have a preset group of players, because you're just tracking your crew. And you don't have to worry so much about like, oh, there are 5 of us playing, but Steve can't make it this week, and all the things that always happen. And Tom and Phil have been playing 10 times more games than anyone else, because I'm mentioning no names from previous gaming groups here at all. This way, you just play at your own pace, and you play with other people. So it's very loose and abstract. It's all just done on the back of your thing, but it gives you a lot of like ongoing emergent narrative for your crew, and it gives you an endpoint, which I think is really important.
Yeah, it stops one crew in particular running away with it, and then people going, well, there's no point in playing anymore because you can no longer beat him.
Yep. And it's got a like a system which is a bit like the Blood Bowl underdog system, where basically when you play a game, you compare your reputations, which is like your crew rating, and you if you're outmatched, you get access to more ploys and chems, which are both kind of little one-shot things you can do in games to make things cooler. It's the equivalent of getting rerolls in Blood Bowl or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So the idea is that even if your crew is massively outmatched, you will get a leg up, and so every game is kind of hopefully fun and interesting for both players.
That's what we love to hear.
Yep.
Now, if people want to find out more about Fallout Factions, they can go over to Modiphius website, where you can pre-order it now and also download the quick start and have a little look around. There's even a link to a game James has played where you can see just exactly how the designer puts his design principles into effect.
Long-term fans of your site will know that me playing games on camera, it always goes so well for me.
It went swimmingly.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed it.
I watched it as well. It was
a really fun day. Yeah. I mean, some would say that I was lulling Steve into a false sense of security by forgetting that I had various rules. Yeah. Others would say,
you threw
it's James playing a game.
Yeah. There we have it, folks. If you're interested or want to find out more, go there. If you've any questions in particular, please drop them below and we'll pass them across to James and see if we can get you an answer. Until next time, take care.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.